In the heart of a sprawling city, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and neon lights painted the streets in vibrant hues, there lived a man named Arjun Patel. To most people, Arjun was the epitome of success, a self-made millionaire who had risen from the ashes of poverty to build an empire. His name was spoken with admiration, his story told as an inspiration to those who dreamed of escaping their struggles. Yet, beneath the polished suits, luxury cars, and penthouse views, Arjun carried a burden that no amount of wealth could lift. Arjun's life revolved around two things: work and his mother, Mira. She was the reason he had fought so hard to climb the ladder of success. Mira had always been his anchor, his guiding light. When he was a child, she worked tirelessly as a seamstress to put food on the table and send him to school. Her hands were calloused, her back bent from years of labor, but her smile never faltered. She taught him resilience, kindness, and the value of hard work. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for them. Years ago, a tragic accident robbed Mira of her ability to walk. It happened on a rainy evening when she slipped on wet pavement while returning home from the market. The fall left her with severe spinal injuries, confining her to a wheelchair. For Arjun, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. Despite his immense resources, no doctor or treatment could undo the damage. He consulted specialists across the globe, spent fortunes on experimental therapies, and even explored alternative medicine. But nothing changed. Mira remained bound to her chair, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the limitations of her body. Though Mira tried to stay positive, encouraging Arjun to focus on his dreams and not let her condition weigh him down, he couldn't shake the guilt. He blamed himself for not being there to protect her that day. He replayed the moment in his mind over and over, wishing he could turn back time. Every night, as he sat alone in his penthouse overlooking the glittering city, he wondered if he'd ever hear her laugh the way she used to, free, uninhibited, full of life. One chilly evening, after attending a charity gala, a rare public appearance for someone as private as Arjun, he decided to take a detour through a quiet alley instead of heading straight home. The event had left him drained. The fake smiles, hollow conversations, and endless handshakes only reminded him how disconnected he felt from the world. As he walked, his polished shoes clicking against the uneven cobblestones, he noticed a figure huddled in the shadows. At first glance, it was just another faceless beggar, one of many who sought refuge in the city's forgotten corners. But something about this boy caught Arjun's attention. The boy looked no older than 15, his thin frame wrapped in tattered clothes too big for him. Dirt smudged his cheeks, and his hair was matted, but his eyes, they were unlike anything Arjun had ever seen. They held a depth, a wisdom far beyond his years, as though they carried stories of lifetimes lived. For a moment, Arjun hesitated, unsure whether to ignore him and continue walking or drop some coins into the makeshift bowl beside him. Before he could decide, the boy spoke. "Sir?" The voice was soft but clear, cutting through the silence like a blade. "I know your pain." Arjun stopped abruptly, his breath catching in his throat. He turned slowly, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What did you say?" he asked, his tone sharp, almost defensive. The boy didn't flinch. Instead, he met Arjun's gaze steadily, his expression calm yet intense. "You carry a heavy burden," he said simply. "Your mother, she cannot walk." Arjun's heart skipped a beat. How could this stranger possibly know about Mira? He hadn't mentioned her to anyone outside his close circle in years. Was this some kind of trick? A scam? He took a step closer, studying the boy intently. There was no malice in his eyes, no hint of deceit, just an unsettling certainty that sent chills down Arjun's spine. "And what makes you think I'd believe anything you say?" Arjun challenged, his voice laced with skepticism. The boy tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. Then, without missing a beat, he whispered, "Because I can help her." For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The distant hum of traffic faded, the cold breeze stilled, and all Arjun could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Help her. This ragged boy. barely more than a child, claiming he could do what countless doctors and experts had failed to achieve. It sounded absurd, impossible. And yet, something deep within Arjun stirred, a flicker of hope, fragile and fleeting, but undeniable. He wanted to dismiss the boy outright, to walk away and forget this bizarre encounter ever happened. But he couldn't, not entirely, because buried beneath layers of doubt and cynicism was the desperate longing to see his mother walk again, to hear her laughter ring out like it used to. "What exactly are you saying?" Arjun finally managed to ask, his voice quieter now, tinged with curiosity. The boy leaned forward slightly, his piercing eyes locked onto Arjun's. "I'm saying, sir, that I can make your mother walk again, if you'll let me try." Arjun stared at him, his mind racing. Was this a cruel joke? A desperate attempt to exploit his wealth? Or was it something else entirely? Whatever the truth might be, one thing was certain. He couldn't ignore it. Not completely. Not when the words echoed in his ears like a promise, one he hadn't dared to hope for in years. As he stood there, frozen in place, the boy added softly, "All I need is a chance." And with that, the seed of possibility was planted, a fragile, unlikely idea that would soon grow into something neither of them could have imagined. The next morning, Arjun woke up with the boy's words still ringing in his ears. "I can make your mother walk again." It was a phrase that had haunted his dreams, replaying over and over like a stubborn melody he couldn't shake off. As he sat at the edge of his bed, staring out at the city skyline bathed in the soft glow of dawn, he wrestled with conflicting emotions. Was it possible? Could this ragged stranger truly hold the key to something that had eluded the brightest minds in medicine? Or was it all just an elaborate trick, a desperate attempt to exploit his wealth? Arjun wasn't one to trust easily. Years of navigating cutthroat business deals and fending off opportunists had taught him to be cautious. Yet, there was something about the boy, Rohan as he called himself, that lingered in his mind. His eyes, so calm and unwavering, seemed to pierce through defenses. And then there was the way he spoke, not with greed or desperation, but with quiet confidence, as though he genuinely believed in what he was saying. Still, Arjun knew better than to act on impulse. He decided to test Rohan further before making any decisions. That evening, after ensuring Mira was settled comfortably in her favorite chair by the window, he returned to the alley where they had met. The narrow street was quieter now, the bustling energy of daytime replaced by the faint hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a stray dog. Rohan was exactly where Arjun had left him, sitting cross-legged on the cold pavement, his tattered clothes blending into the shadows. "Why? Should I believe you?" Arjun asked without preamble, his tone sharp, almost accusatory. He wanted to see how Rohan would react under pressure. Rohan looked up, unfazed by Arjun's abruptness. "Because I have nothing to gain from lying," he replied simply, his voice steady. "If I fail, you lose nothing. But if I succeed—" He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Arjun frowned, folding his arms across his chest. "You're just a kid. What do you know about healing?" To his surprise, Rohan didn't bristle at the insult. Instead, he smiled faintly, as though expecting the skepticism. "I may be young, sir, but knowledge doesn't care about age. A wandering sage once found me when I was lost and taught me things most people wouldn't understand. He said my hands were meant for healing." "Healing?" Arjun echoed, raising an eyebrow. "You expect me to believe some mystical nonsense about ancient techniques?" "It's not nonsense," Rohan said firmly, his voice gaining strength. "It's science mixed with tradition. The body is more than flesh and bone. It's energy, balance, connection. Modern doctors focus only on fixing what's broken, but true healing requires understanding the whole person." Arjun hesitated, intrigued despite himself. There was no denying the sincerity in Rohan's words. The boy wasn't trying to dazzle him with flashy promises or beg for money. In fact, when Arjun reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash, intending to offer it as a gesture of goodwill, Rohan shook his head. "I don't want your money, sir," he said firmly. "All I ask is food and shelter while I help." Your mother. If I fail, you owe me nothing. That statement struck a chord deep within Arjun. Here was someone who could have easily taken advantage of the situation, yet he refused even the smallest token of payment up front. It was either the bravest bluff Arjun had ever encountered, or the most genuine act of selflessness. Reluctantly, Arjun agreed to bring Rohan home the following night. "If you're wasting my time," he warned, his voice low and serious, "you'll regret it." Rohan nodded solemnly. "I won't waste your time, sir, I promise." When the appointed hour arrived, Arjun led Rohan into his penthouse. The contrast between the opulent surroundings and the boy's disheveled appearance was stark, but Rohan didn't seem intimidated. He walked with quiet dignity, his gaze taking in the sleek furniture and panoramic windows without a hint of awe or envy. Mira was waiting in the living room, her wheelchair positioned near the fireplace. Her face lit up with warmth as she greeted them. "Arjun, who is this young man?" she asked, her voice gentle and curious. "This is Rohan," Arjun replied, his tone clipped. "He claims he can help you." Mira's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't laugh or dismiss the idea outright. Instead, she turned her attention to Rohan, studying him with the same kindness she extended to everyone. "Is that so? Well, I suppose miracles can come in unexpected packages." Rohan smiled shyly, bowing his head slightly in respect. "I'm no miracle worker, ma'am. Just someone who wants to help." For the next hour, Rohan examined Mira carefully, asking questions about her accident, her daily routine, and how she felt physically. He listened intently, nodding thoughtfully as she described the numbness in her legs and the occasional tingling sensations. When he finally asked permission to touch her legs, both Mira and Arjun exchanged wary glances. But Mira, ever trusting, gave a small nod. Rohan knelt beside her wheelchair, his movements deliberate and respectful. Pulling a small pouch from his pocket, he opened it to reveal a collection of dried herbs and oils. With practiced hands, he began massaging her calves, applying the oil in slow rhythmic motions. The scent of camphor and sandalwood filled the room, mingling with the crackling fire. Arjun watched silently, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He wanted to scoff, to point out how absurd it all seemed, but something held him back. Perhaps it was the look of concentration on Rohan's face or the way Mira closed her eyes, visibly relaxing under his touch. Whatever it was, Arjun found himself unable to interrupt. As the session drew to a close, Rohan stood up, wiping his hands on a cloth. "That's enough for today," he said softly. "We'll continue tomorrow." "And what exactly should we expect?" Arjun demanded, his skepticism resurfacing. Rohan met his gaze evenly. "Patience, sir. Healing takes time. But if you allow me to keep going, I believe we'll see progress." Mira, however, seemed more optimistic. "I felt something," she admitted, her voice tinged with wonder. "A warmth, like pins and needles, but softer." Arjun's jaw tightened. Hope was dangerous, especially when it came wrapped in uncertainty. Still, he couldn't deny the flicker of curiosity burning within him. Against his better judgment, he allowed Rohan to stay, providing him with fresh clothes, a warm meal, and access to his library. Over the next few days, Rohan continued his treatments, combining physical therapy with meditation exercises designed to strengthen not just the body but the mind and spirit as well. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, changes began to emerge. Mira reported feeling tiny twitches in her toes, a sensation she hadn't experienced in years. Each new sign fueled Arjun's growing intrigue, though he remained guarded, unwilling to let himself hope too much. And yet, as he watched Rohan work tirelessly, pouring every ounce of his energy into helping Mira, Arjun couldn't help but wonder, who was this boy really? And why did he carry such conviction in his abilities? The answers, he realized, might lie deeper than he'd imagined, and uncovering them could change everything. As the days turned into weeks, Rohan's presence in Arjun's penthouse became a quiet but undeniable force. The once skeptical millionaire found himself observing the boy with a mix of curiosity and guarded hope. Every evening, after Mira had rested from her daily routine, Rohan would appear in the living room, his demeanor calm and focused. He carried with him the same small pouch of herbs and oils, along with an unwavering determination that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The treatments themselves were unlike anything Arjun had ever seen. Rohan didn't rely on machines or pills. Instead, he worked with his hands, using techniques that looked deceptively simple, yet required immense precision. Each session began with meditation, soft chants whispered under his breath as he guided Mira through breathing exercises. "Your body listens when your mind is still," he explained one evening, catching Arjun's skeptical gaze. "It's about creating harmony." Afterward, Rohan would gently massage Mira's legs, applying the herbal oil in slow, deliberate strokes. His touch was firm but tender, as though he could sense the exact pressure needed to awaken dormant nerves. Sometimes, he incorporated stretches, coaxing Mira to move her limbs in ways she hadn't dared to try in years. Other times he used heat therapy, wrapping her legs in warm cloths soaked in medicinal infusions. The entire process was methodical, almost ritualistic and strangely soothing to watch. What struck Arjun most was Rohan's patience. There were no shortcuts, no promises of overnight miracles. Instead, Rohan emphasized consistency and trust. "Healing isn't instant," he told them repeatedly. "It's like planting a seed. You water it, nurture it, and wait for it to bloom." At first, progress was subtle, so slight that Arjun wondered if it was all in their heads. Mira reported, feeling occasional tingles in her toes, a sensation she described as like bubbles popping. One evening, she even claimed to feel warmth spreading through her calves during the massage. Arjun dismissed these observations as psychological effects, placebo responses triggered by Rohan's confidence. But then came the moment that silenced his doubts. It happened on a rainy afternoon 3 weeks into Rohan's care. Mira was sitting in her wheelchair near the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Rohan was kneeling beside her, working on her right leg with his usual concentration. Suddenly, Mira gasped, her hand flying to her thigh. "Rohan," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "I felt something, a twitch." Arjun, who had been reading a newspaper in the corner, looked up sharply. "What do you mean, a twitch?" Mira pointed to her foot. "Here, it moved. It actually moved." Rohan immediately stopped what he was doing and examined her leg closely. After a few moments, he nodded, his expression unreadable. "Try moving it again," he instructed softly. With visible effort, Mira focused on her foot. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, her big toe curled upward. It wasn't much, a fraction of movement, but it was enough to leave everyone speechless. Arjun dropped the newspaper, his eyes wide with disbelief. For years he had dreamed of this moment, prayed for it, spent fortunes chasing it. And now, here it was, happening before his very eyes. Tears welled up in Mira's eyes as she stared at her foot in wonder. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I never thought I'd see this day." Even Arjun, who prided himself on his composure, felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to celebrate, to shout with joy, but something held him back, an instinctive need to remain cautious. Was this just a fluke? A temporary reaction with no lasting impact? Or was it truly the beginning of something greater? Over the next few weeks, the changes became more pronounced. Mira's movements grew stronger, her muscles responding to Rohan's therapies in ways that defied logic. She started regaining limited mobility in her ankles and knees, able to lift her legs slightly off the wheelchair cushion. Rohan encouraged her to practice regularly, teaching her exercises to build strength and flexibility. He also introduced dietary adjustments, recommending foods rich in nutrients that supported nerve regeneration. Arjun watched it all unfold with a mixture of awe and unease. On one hand, he couldn't deny the evidence in front of him. His mother, who had been confined to a wheelchair for years, was slowly reclaiming pieces of her independence. Yet on the other hand, He couldn't shake the nagging question. How was Rohan doing this? Who was he really? One evening, as Rohan prepared for another session, Arjun decided to confront him. "You've done things no doctor could," he began, his tone measured but probing. "How is it possible? Where did you learn these methods?" Rohan paused, his hands hovering over the bowl of oil. For a moment he looked uncertain, as though debating how much to reveal. Finally he sighed and sat back on his heels. "I told you before, sir. A sage taught me. He found me when I was alone, lost after my family died in a fire. He took me in, showed me secrets passed down through generations. Not magic, not miracles, just knowledge that modern medicine hasn't fully understood yet." "And where is this sage now?" Arjun pressed, leaning forward. "He disappeared," Rohan replied quietly. "One day he was there, and the next, he was gone. All he left behind were his teachings, and the belief that I could use them to help others." Arjun studied him carefully, searching for any sign of deception, but Rohan's expression remained open, his words sincere. Still, the story raised more questions than answers. Why would such a gifted healer live as a beggar? Why had he chosen to reveal himself to Arjun of all people? Despite his reservations, Arjun couldn't deny the results. Mira's progress was undeniable, and Rohan's dedication was unwavering. He continued to provide for the boy, ensuring he had everything he needed while respecting his privacy. In return, Rohan poured every ounce of his energy into helping Mira, treating her with a level of care and respect that went beyond duty. As the weeks passed, something remarkable began to happen, not just to Mira, but to Arjun as well. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to evenings, eager to witness the incremental victories in his mother's recovery. Watching her laugh, hearing her voice filled with excitement over tiny milestones, reminded him of the woman she used to be, the vibrant, fearless woman who had shaped his life. Slowly, the weight of guilt and regret that had burdened him for so long began to lift. But perhaps the most surprising change was in his relationship with Rohan. Initially wary of the boy, Arjun now found himself drawn to his quiet wisdom and unshakable optimism. They began talking more often, sharing stories late into the night. Arjun learned about Rohan's childhood, his struggles on the streets, and his deep-seated desire to give back to the world. In turn, he opened up about his own fears and failures, finding solace in the boy's non-judgmental ear. Through it all, Rohan remained humble, refusing to take credit for Mira's progress. "It's not me, sir," he insisted, whenever Arjun praised him. "It's your mother's strength. I'm just guiding her." By the end of the third month, Mira was able to stand, with assistance, for short periods. Though her steps were tentative and wobbly, they were steps nonetheless. Each one brought tears to her eyes and renewed determination to keep going. For Arjun, these moments were nothing short of miraculous. They weren't just restoring his mother's mobility. They were mending something deeper, the bond between them, fractured by years of silent suffering. And yet, amidst the joy and hope, a part of Arjun remained uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling that Rohan's presence in their lives was more than mere coincidence. There was a purpose behind it, a larger story waiting to unfold. Whatever it was, he knew one thing for certain. Their lives would never be the same again. As weeks turned into months, Mira's progress became undeniable. Her once motionless legs now responded to commands, her muscles growing stronger with each passing day. She could stand for longer periods and even shuffle a few steps with the help of a walker. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous, and it filled Arjun with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Yet, as much as he admired Rohan's dedication and skill, a lingering unease gnawed at him. Who was this boy? How had someone so young mastered such extraordinary techniques? And why had fate brought them together? One evening, after another successful session with Mira, Arjun decided to dig deeper. While Rohan cleaned up the oils and herbs in the living room, Arjun retreated to his study. He wasn't one to leave questions unanswered, especially when they involved his family. Pulling out an old laptop, he began searching through archives of local newspapers online. At first, his efforts yielded little more than headlines about petty crimes and political scandals. But then, buried beneath years of digital clutter, he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. It was a faded article from nearly 5 years ago, accompanied by a grainy photograph. The headline read, "Young prodigy loses family in tragic fire. Where is Rohan Kumar now?" Beneath the text was a picture of a boy who bore an uncanny resemblance to the teenager currently living under his roof. The article described how Rohan Kumar, then just 10 years old, had been hailed as a child prodigy, a gifted student who excelled in academics and showed remarkable aptitude for traditional medicine. But everything changed when a devastating fire claimed the lives of his parents and younger sister. After the tragedy, Rohan vanished without a trace, leaving behind only rumors of sightings on the streets. Arjun stared at the screen, his mind racing. Could it really be the same person? If so, what had happened to Rohan during those missing years? Why had he ended up as a beggar instead of continuing his education or pursuing his talents? More importantly, how had he acquired the knowledge and skills to perform feats that baffled modern science? The next morning, Arjun confronted Rohan. He waited until Mira had gone to bed, ensuring their conversation would remain private. When Rohan entered the study, carrying the now familiar pouch of herbs, Arjun held up the printed article he'd saved from the internet. "Care to explain this?" he asked, his tone sharp but controlled. Rohan froze, his eyes widening as he recognized the photograph. For a moment he said nothing, his face pale and stricken. Then, with a deep sigh, he sank into a chair opposite Arjun. "I wondered when you'd find out," he admitted quietly. "I didn't think it would take this long." "Who are you, Rohan?" Arjun demanded, leaning forward. "And don't give me that nonsense about being taught by some wandering sage. Start from the beginning." Rohan hesitated, his fingers tracing the edge of the pouch in his lap. Finally, he began to speak, his voice low and measured. "The fire, it destroyed everything. My family, my home, my life. I was alone, scared, and angry. I ran away before anyone could take me to an orphanage. I didn't want to be locked up somewhere, treated like a charity case. So I lived on the streets, surviving however I could." He paused, swallowing hard. "That's where I met him, the sage. He found me one night, huddled under a bridge, half-starved and ready to give up. He didn't ask questions. He just took me in. At first I thought he was crazy, talking about energy flows and ancient practices. But he was kind, patient, and somehow he saw something in me that no one else did. He believed I could heal others even when I didn't believe it myself." "And the fire?" Arjun interrupted, his brow furrowed. "How does a child genius end up begging on the streets?" Pain flickered across Rohan's face. "After the sage disappeared, I tried going back to school, but it wasn't the same. Everyone looked at me differently, as if I were broken. I couldn't focus, couldn't fit in. Eventually, I stopped trying. The streets felt safer, simpler, until—" His voice trailed off and he glanced at Arjun. "Until I saw you." Arjun frowned. "What do you mean, until I saw you?" Rohan hesitated again, as though choosing his words carefully. "When I saw you that night in the alley, I knew. Something inside me told me your pain was tied to mine. That maybe, just maybe, I could help you the way the sage helped me." Arjun sat back, processing the revelation. It was a lot to take in. The tragic backstory, the mysterious mentor, the unexplainable connection between them. Part of him wanted to dismiss it all as too far-fetched, too convenient. But another part, the part that had witnessed his mother's gradual recovery, couldn't ignore the truth staring him in the face. "You're saying this isn't just about my mother," Arjun said slowly. "You think there's some greater purpose here?" Rohan nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just coincidence. All I know is that I can't walk away from people who need help. Not when I have the ability to make a difference. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Arjun studied Rohan, seeing him not as a beggar or a healer, but as a survivor. A boy who had endured unimaginable loss and emerged with a gift meant to heal others. Whatever doubts lingered in his mind, one thing was clear. Rohan wasn't using him or manipulating him. He genuinely wanted to help. Over the following days, Arjun found himself reflecting on their conversation. He realized that Rohan's presence in his life wasn't just about restoring Mira's mobility. It was about challenging his own beliefs, forcing him to confront the walls he had built around himself. Success had insulated him from vulnerability, making him cautious and skeptical. But Rohan embodied something different: resilience, selflessness, and an unwavering faith in humanity. Mira, meanwhile, continued to improve. With Rohan's guidance, she regained enough strength to take several, unassisted steps, her joy infectious and inspiring. One afternoon, as she stood in the middle of the living room, holding on to the back of a chair for support, she turned to Arjun with tears in her eyes. "I never thought I'd feel this alive again," she said softly. "Thank you for bringing Rohan into our lives." Arjun smiled, though his heart swelled with conflicting emotions. Gratitude warred with guilt. The guilt of having underestimated Rohan, of initially dismissing him as a fraud. He resolved to make amends, not just by supporting Rohan, but by embracing the lessons he represented. Inspired by Rohan's humility and dedication, Arjun began thinking beyond his penthouse. What if Rohan's methods could benefit others? What if they could create a space where people from all walks of life could access affordable, holistic care? The idea took root in his mind, growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as Rohan prepared for another session with Mira, Arjun broached the subject. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone thoughtful. "Your skills shouldn't be limited to helping just one person. You have a gift, Rohan, one that could change countless lives. What if we opened a clinic? A place where you could practice openly, combining your techniques with modern medicine?" Rohan looked up, startled. "A clinic? For me?" "Yes," Arjun replied firmly. "You've done wonders for my mother. Imagine what you could do for others. I'll fund it, provide the resources. You just focus on healing." For a moment, Rohan was silent, his eyes shining with emotion. Then slowly he nodded. "If it means helping others, I'll do it. But remember, sir, it's not about me. It's about giving people hope." And so, the seeds of a new chapter were planted, not just for Rohan and Arjun, but for everyone whose lives they touched. As plans for the clinic began to take shape, Arjun felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. Money and success were fleeting. True fulfillment came from making a difference. And with Rohan by his side, he was ready to embark on a journey that would redefine not only their lives, but the lives of many others. The idea of opening a clinic quickly transformed from a distant dream into a tangible reality. Arjun, driven by a newfound sense of purpose, threw himself into the project with the same intensity he had once reserved for his business ventures. But this time it wasn't about profit margins or market shares. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could heal not just bodies but hearts and minds. Arjun began by purchasing an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. It was old and neglected, its walls covered in graffiti and its windows cracked, but it had good bones. With Rohan's input, they designed the space to be warm and inviting, blending modern medical equipment with traditional elements like wooden carvings and natural light flooding through large windows. The goal was simple: to create a sanctuary where people felt safe, respected, and cared for. Rohan, meanwhile, took on the role of advisor, sharing insights into how the clinic should operate. "It's not enough to treat symptoms," he told Arjun one afternoon as they walked through the construction site. "We need to understand the person behind the illness, their pain, their fears, their hopes. Healing is as much about listening as it is about doing." Arjun nodded, impressed by Rohan's wisdom despite his young age. "You're right," he said. "This isn't going to be like other hospitals. We'll focus on personalized care, combining your methods with conventional treatments. People will come here knowing they'll be treated as individuals, not numbers. To ensure the clinic offered comprehensive services, Arjun hired a team of doctors, physiotherapists, and counselors who shared their vision. He also reached out to local herbalists and practitioners of alternative medicine, inviting them to collaborate. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Many were eager to contribute to a project that prioritized holistic healing over quick fixes. As word spread about the upcoming clinic, curiosity grew. Neighbors who had watched the building's transformation began stopping by to ask questions. Some were skeptical. How could a teenager with no formal education lead such an ambitious endeavor? Others were hopeful, drawn to the promise of affordable, compassionate care. Among them were individuals carrying years of physical and emotional scars, desperate for relief. When the clinic finally opened its doors 6 months later, the turnout exceeded everyone's expectations. Hundreds of people lined up outside, some clutching x-rays, others holding prescription slips or simply stories of suffering. Inside, Rohan worked tirelessly alongside the staff, guiding patients through consultations, examinations, and treatments. His presence was calming, his touch gentle yet firm. Whether it was a child with a broken arm, an elderly woman battling arthritis, or a young man recovering from surgery, Rohan approached each case with the same level of dedication. One of the first patients was a middle-aged man named Ramesh, who had lost all feeling in his legs after a workplace accident. Doctors had told him he would never walk again, leaving him dependent on crutches and prone to depression. When he arrived at the clinic, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow with despair. Rohan spent hours examining him, asking detailed questions about his injury and lifestyle. Then, using a combination of massage, acupuncture, and tailored exercises, he began treating Ramesh. Weeks passed, and slowly but surely, Ramesh started showing signs of improvement. At first, it was just a faint, tingling sensation in his toes, similar to what Mira had experienced. Encouraged, Rohan adjusted the treatment plan, incorporating heat therapy and meditation to strengthen both body and mind. By the 3rd month, Ramesh took his first unassisted step, a moment that brought tears to his eyes and applause from the entire clinic staff. Stories like Ramesh's became common at the clinic. A teenage girl paralyzed by polio regained partial mobility. An elderly man suffering from chronic back pain found relief after years of agony. Even those without visible ailments, people struggling with anxiety, insomnia, or grief, found solace in the clinic's welcoming atmosphere. Word of these successes spread rapidly, attracting visitors from neighboring towns and even distant cities. But running the clinic wasn't without challenges. Supplies were expensive, and maintaining quality care required constant effort. There were days when Arjun questioned whether they could keep up with demand. Yet every time doubt crept in, he looked around and saw the impact they were making. Patients left smiling, their faces glowing with gratitude. Families reunited, celebrating milestones they thought were lost forever. And Rohan, always at the center of it all, remained steadfast in his mission. Mira, too, played a vital role in the clinic's success. Inspired by her own recovery, she volunteered as an art therapist, teaching painting and drawing to patients undergoing rehabilitation. Her classes became wildly popular, offering not just a creative outlet, but a way to express emotions words couldn't capture. For many, art became a bridge between pain and healing, a reminder that beauty could emerge from struggle. Despite the clinic's growing reputation, Rohan refused to let fame change him. He continued to live modestly, sleeping in a small room above the clinic and eating meals prepared by the kitchen staff. Money meant little to him. His only reward was seeing the joy on patients' faces when they achieved progress. "This is why I'm here," he often said. "Not for recognition, but to give people hope." Arjun admired Rohan's humility, though it sometimes frustrated him. "You deserve more credit than you're taking," he told him one evening as they sat on the rooftop watching the sunset. "People should know your name, your story. You've changed so many lives." Rohan shook his head, smiling softly. "It's not about me, sir, it never was. If my work inspires others to help, then that's enough. Names don't matter, only actions do." His words struck a chord deep within Arjun. Here was someone who embodied selflessness, someone who gave freely without expecting anything in return. It made Arjun reflect on his own journey, the years he had spent chasing wealth and status. He realized now that true fulfillment came not from what you accumulated but from what you contributed. Over time, the clinic became more than just a place of healing. It became a symbol of resilience and unity. Volunteers poured in, offering their skills and time. Donations flowed steadily, allowing the clinic to expand its services and reach even more people. Local schools organized fundraisers, businesses donated supplies, and media outlets highlighted their efforts, shining a spotlight on the power of community-driven initiatives. Yet, amidst all the accolades and achievements, Rohan stayed grounded. He reminded everyone that healing was a collective effort, a shared responsibility. "None of us can do this alone," he said during a gathering to celebrate the clinic's one-year anniversary. "Every hand matters, every voice counts. Together, we can make a difference." As fireworks lit up the night sky marking the occasion, Arjun stood beside Rohan, his heart swelling with pride. Looking out at the crowd, patients, volunteers, staff, and supporters, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had started as a chance encounter in a dark alley had blossomed into something extraordinary, a beacon of hope, lighting the way for countless lives. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly have its share of challenges, Arjun knew one thing for certain: they were ready to face them together. Years passed, and the clinic that began as a modest dream transformed into a cornerstone of the community. Its reputation spread far beyond the city limits, drawing patients from distant villages and even neighboring countries. What had once been an abandoned building was now a bustling hub of activity, a place where laughter mixed with tears, where pain gave way to hope, and where strangers became family. Rohan, though still young, had grown into his role as the heart and soul of the clinic. His hands, calloused from years of healing, had touched countless lives. Yet he remained unchanged in spirit, humble, patient, and endlessly compassionate. To the world, he was a prodigy, a miracle worker, whose methods defied conventional wisdom. But to those who knew him best, Rohan was simply a boy who had chosen to use his gift for good. Arjun often marveled at how much Rohan had influenced, not just the clinic, but also his own life. The millionaire-turned-philanthropist found himself unrecognizable compared to the man he used to be. Gone was the hardened businessman obsessed with wealth and status. In his place stood someone softer, kinder, a man who understood that true success wasn't measured by bank balances, but by the number of lives you touched. He spent his days overseeing the clinic's operations, ensuring it ran smoothly while mentoring young healers inspired by Rohan's example. Mira, fully recovered, had rediscovered her passion for teaching art. Her classes at the clinic became legendary, attracting students of all ages eager to learn under her guidance. Through painting, she helped them express emotions they couldn't put into words: grief, joy, fear, triumph. Each canvas told a story, each brushstroke a testament to resilience. For Mira, it was more than therapy. It was a way to give back, to honor the second chance at life she'd been given. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was within the clinic itself. It wasn't just a medical facility anymore. It was a movement. People came not only seeking treatment but also inspiration. They witnessed firsthand what could be achieved when compassion met determination, when science blended with tradition, and when humanity took center stage. The clinic became a model for others, sparking similar initiatives across the region. 1. Evening. On the 5th anniversary of the clinic's opening, a grand celebration was held in its courtyard. Strings of fairy lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Patients, volunteers, doctors, and well-wishers mingled freely, sharing stories and laughter. A small stage had been set up, and as dusk settled, Rohan stepped onto it, greeted by thunderous applause. For a moment he stood silently, taking in the sea of faces before him. Then, with a soft smile, he began to speak. When I first met Arjun Patel in that alley, I didn't know what the future held. All I knew was that I wanted to help, to make a difference, no matter how small. Today, looking out at all of you, I realize we've done far more than I ever imagined. His voice grew stronger as he continued. Healing isn't just about fixing broken bodies. It's about mending hearts, bridging divides, and reminding ourselves of our shared humanity. Every one of you here tonight has played a part in this journey. Whether you're a patient, a volunteer, or simply someone who believes in what we're doing, you are proof that change is possible when we come together. The crowd erupted into cheers, many wiping away tears. As Rohan stepped down from the stage, Arjun approached him, clapping him on the shoulder. "You did it," Arjun said, his voice thick with emotion. "You built something extraordinary." "It wasn't me," Rohan replied, shaking his head. "It was all of us. Together." Later that night, after the festivities wound down, Arjun and Rohan sat on the rooftop gazing at the stars. The city below sparkled like a constellation, alive with energy and possibility. For a long time, neither spoke, content to soak in the quiet beauty of the moment. Finally, Arjun broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder what the sage would say if he saw this? If he knew what you've accomplished?" Rohan chuckled softly. "I think he'd tell me I'm still learning, that there's always more to do, more to give." "And what about you?" Arjun pressed. "What's next for you? Surely you can't stay here forever." Rohan hesitated, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I'll travel, see if there are other places that need help, or maybe I'll stay a while longer. Either way, I'll keep going wherever I'm needed." Arjun nodded, understanding the depth of Rohan's commitment. There was no endgame for someone like Rohan, only a continuous cycle of giving and growing. And though the thought of him leaving someday filled Arjun with sadness, he respected Rohan's freedom. After all, it was that same freedom that had brought them together in the first place. As the months turned into years, Rohan eventually decided to move on. He left quietly, without fanfare, carrying little more than the clothes on his back and a pouch of herbs. Before departing, he left a letter for Arjun and Meera, thanking them for their trust and urging them to continue the work they had started. "The clinic is your legacy now," he wrote. "Take care of it, and let it take care of others." Though his absence left a void, the clinic thrived under Arjun's leadership. New healers joined the team, inspired by Rohan's teachings, and the mission remained unchanged, to provide hope and healing to those who needed it most. Meanwhile, Rohan's name became legend, a symbol of selflessness and perseverance whispered in reverence wherever stories of kindness were told. Years later, Arjun stood on the same rooftop where he and Rohan had shared so many conversations. The clinic below buzzed with activity, its walls radiating warmth even in the chill of winter. Looking out at the city, Arjun felt a profound sense of peace. Rohan may have moved on, but his spirit lived on, in the smiles of healed patients, in the dedication of volunteers, and in the ripple effect of kindness spreading far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Life, Arjun realized, was full of miracles, not the kind that happened overnight, but the slow, steady ones born from love, patience, and belief in the impossible. And as he descended the stairs to join the bustling clinic below, he knew one thing for certain. The journey Rohan had started was far from over. It was a legacy destined to endure, lighting the path for generations to come.